my unit plan that I've created and all the work I've done on this current English courses webpage for me. First of all, I just like the way it looks now. I mean, it seems much more user-friendly. Um, whether I'm looking at it for American Studies, one class I'll be teaching, or Multicultural Lit, another class, and just kind of messing around with different options here, with including calendars, etc. Um, so here we go. The unit that I'm going to focus on, at least applying the information I've learned, is the Asian American unit. And when I open up this page for my multicultural lit class, this will be like the first unit that will start for the semester. And primary goals and objectives for this unit anyway, is specifically for multicultural lit, is to have the students recognize the importance of culture, how history has reflects culture, how literature reflects culture, struggles that different groups have faced in America with their culture, coming to accept their culture, and how America and Americans and potentially have made it difficult for them being in America and becoming Americans, even though they may be of Asian descent or Hispanic descent or African descent, whatever it might be. So anyway, first thing that we're going to work on is the Japanese Americans as we get into the Asian American unit, and kind of pull off of a historical event that the students know pretty well, with Pearl Harbor. And one of the things that I want to be able to have the students be able to utilize more is just being able to access clips. And if you see here with the attack on Pearl Harbor, this YouTube clip, just a couple minutes to give them, yes, a Hollywood dramatized version of it, but to kind of just have them see the event and talk about it as a class, the different emotions that are brought to light through this event. And we do that quite well through the discussion. When we see the clip, we look at different scenes and ask them to to analyze, if you were this individual in this particular moment of this video clip, how would you feel, etc. So we have that, and we play off that emotion as well. And then this next clip here with the picture where it says Japs keep moving, it I think the picture helps the students understand like the effect and the emotion that Americans would have had, and mistrust of the Japanese after Pearl Harbor, even though the people who were here, whether they were citizens or not, really had nothing to do with it. So when they click on this picture, it actually takes them to and give them instances would have been like for the internment camps, so they can watch this as well, and we can discuss that as part of just better feel for maybe the emotion that we may have had at this horrific event that we see in this Pearl Harbor attack, and discuss through the video, to now saying, well, wow, this is a much different place. So I think it's a good way to get the kids anchored into just an objective of understanding what it would have been like at the time, and maybe some of the misconceptions that people had of the Japanese through these two video clips. From there, what I plan on doing is using this PowerPoint and just to kind of give them some historical background information of the repercussions of Pearl Harbor at home. And I think that's important for them to see, especially if we can slide through here, Executive Order 9066, because that will eventually be part of the literature that we'll be reading. One of the poems that Dwight Okita wrote is in response to Executive Order 9066. So the kids need some historical background information on what Executive Order 9066 did, placing Japanese Americans in relocation centers or internment camps. So this PowerPoint is kind of nice that the students can view it on their own at home. They can also view it in class. My plans are eventually to do like a little screencast for anybody who would have been gone, so they get more than just information here that's presented to them. So anyway, again, trying to move to like a different objective here. Moving to the next part of this website is, you see a couple of videos. One is from Toby Keith and one is from Fort Minor. And this goes into some of the objectives I have for the class, more like literature focused. One of the things that I want to focus on for the students' objectives is the use of different literary terms, in this case mood. Like in literature, you're thinking of mood being the impact that author's words and his or her message might have on the reader. In this case, we'd be looking at like the mood that this video creates in the viewer. And specifically, the courtesy of Red, White, and Blue from Toby Keith is looking at 9/11, and the connection will be the emotional reaction that we had to 9/11 attack and how it would parallel the emotions that Americans would have had at the attack at Pearl Harbor, things we had already discussed in class when we watched the Pearl Harbor video. So here it's again kind of mood connotation, and students getting the understanding that a video has that same message. It's trying to convey some kind of feeling in you and make you act or feel a certain way. And again, that's kind of building to the poetry that we'll be doing and how poets are using their words to affect the reader, and make them feel something. The difference here is the Fort Minor video called Kenji is looking at it's a rap song, so I think it's kind of cool for the students to see it, and they can kind of relate to it. That might be a genre of music that they like, but it's a far different mood in terms of what the camps were really like. So again, paralleling the situation here where we might have a reaction that's quite angry, and similar to what we see here with this Japs Keep Moving sign, where we have a distrust of people who are different from us that have done this to us, whether it's 9/11 or Pearl Harbor. And then this contemporary music video that's showing what it would have been like to be Japanese American at that time and how they were treated in the community and also in internment camps. So that all works together for this first Google forum, which I look at as kind of a nice formative assessment where the students can kind of compare and contrast the two messages that are sent and how they're sent to us through the videos, and what that ultimately may make us feel. Does one prejudice over more over the other, and when we look at both sides, how does that what message is sent to us, and what do we better understand regarding the experience that Japanese Americans would have faced. And again, to me, that goes back to the objective that I have overall, is seeing how people are affected by historical events. Something so horrific as Pearl Harbor greatly affected the Japanese Americans, even though they didn't have anything to do with it. So that's where we're proceeding, kind of just again setting up the stage for the literature that we're eventually making our way to. And as you get to the bottom of this page, you can start seeing some of the poems that we're going to be looking at. One author being Dwight Okita, the other author being Lawson Anata. And what's kind of interesting, I think, about these pieces is this, in response to Executive Order 9066, kind of obviously pertains back to what I mentioned here in the PowerPoint, knowing the historical significance of that being the piece of legislation that would have placed Japanese Americans in the internment camps. Now, what I do like about this specific part of my webpage is that when you click on Dwight Okita's image, it takes us to his webpage that he's created, and it allows the students to not only read the poem, which we'll be dissecting and analyzing more specifically in class, but also allows them to take a look at the background that he titles background on in response to Executive Order 9066. And as you can tell, it's written from the first person, so it's his perspective on what inspired him to write the poem, what he was trying to convey through the poem. And I think that's kind of a nice supplement to what I'm asking the students to dissect as they look at other terms like imagery and symbolism and tone of the poems that we discuss. They can also take a look at what he was trying to convey, and get an understanding that there is a specific objective that an author has in writing his or her poem. So again, when I look at objectives overall, we start to look at literary terms. We start to analyze them, think on our own in small group activities as well, and then they can use this source as an outside reference to look at what Dwight Okita was attempting to do in his piece. And as I go back to my webpage, when I look at the second poem and click on Lawson Anata's picture, I found a really cool website that allows the students to access his poem Concentration Constellation. Again, something that can be front loaded. The students could actually listen as they play here to Lawson Anata read the poem, but in the preview to him reading the poem, there's about a 30-second, 45-second clip of him just speaking about how he came to write the poem. He actually experienced the internment camps, and it's a little different feel to this tone compared to Dwight Okita's poem. So I think the kids listening to him to read it, but also to his thoughts as to what inspired him to write it, could be helpful in our discussion. Because when we look at the objectives again of the unit, and in this case looking at tone, the tone of the Okita poem is far different from the tone of the Anata poem. And ultimately, when we think about mood, things we've talked about all the way back here in these videos, we can start realizing that how we feel as readers when we read Okita's poem is different from how we may feel when we read Anata's poem, even though they both effectively send a message about the difficulties of living in the internment camps and the injustice of the internment camps. So I think through the literary terms, the kids can demonstrate pretty good understanding of the objectives for the unit. Just a little activity I'm trying to create here with the form. When the students click on this button, I'll ask them to kind of look at the websites and take in what Okita wrote about in like his of his poem, and what Anata talks about in his introduction to reading his poem. And I want the students to kind of look at how their own individual experiences may have affected how they wrote their poems as well. So again, the objective here is, think about 21st century skills, having them look at sources. Granted, they didn't find the sources on their own, but having them look at outside sources that can make these poets real, and have them understand the complexities of the poems that they're writing. And also taking a look at how, again, that historical event, how does it affect people differently? Again, for Anata, someone who experienced it, and Okita, somebody who had not been born at the time of the internment camps, but through generations and talking to parents and grandparents, etc., would have learned so much about it, and it still affects who he is. So anyway, that's where we're going. I'm going for the unit. And I think the nice thing about when I look at the effective use of technology in this course so far for this unit, again, I'm trying to have them look at outside sources, going to different websites. There's some YouTube clips that they can analyze as well. They're using some Moodle forums to respond to one another and to me. And of course, we have some PowerPoints and other items that they can be checking out as well. So I guess ultimately then, when I look at kind of a formative and a summative assessment, I have some formative assessment stuff. I haven't done this yet. I've just kind of modified this activity for the students, and I've kind of made it more 21st century. When I looked at what I did a few years back, I had the students basically just using pencil and crayon and marker and sheets of paper to create kind of a creative project that demonstrates, again, kind of the focal point of this assignment or this unit is, tone, imagery, mood. Now what they're going to do is, I think, kind of bring it to the 21st century. I've got some items that I want them to include in their presentation or their project, but I'm allowing them to find a form of technology that they think that they can use well, that they'd be good at, whether it's a Google presentation that they're then going to screencast and share with me, or a Prezi that they could share with me, and maybe even do a little screencast of that. They could create a Google site and just have it specifically for this activity, and share that with me, and I'd be able to see check their understanding. Maybe some kids would be really adept at creating a YouTube video, whatever it might be, but I just want to allow them the opportunity to play with technology the best they know. If some kids are relatively basic at their understanding, I can use my relatively basic understanding of certain platforms and help them prepare something that demonstrates their understanding and their learning and their thinking, much like Corey was talking about earlier in the week. So anyway, I think the activities that we've been working on for the class have been outstanding. I'm really happy and excited about what I've been able to create. I've obviously got some more work to do with the other units that we're going to be doing throughout the semester with multicultural literature, but I definitely think I'm in the right direction. So that's it, and I appreciate all your help, and thank you very much.